today's video we are taking a closer look at a knife made by Chinese knife maker Tuya knife. I've seen a few of their models before online, never pulled the trigger until now, and I decided to go with this specific model, the Talon, because I found the design to be quite, interesting, different and intriguing of sorts. So when you order the knife, this is how you will receive it, in a very, standard but quite functional folder pouch. And opening the pouch up here, you actually have the box outside. Usually, the pouch is inside a box, but they went a different route here. So the pouch here is, really, standard pouch with space for two folders, should you want to. Not a whole lot to say about this, but it is, it is functional. And I appreciate always, getting any kind of pouch, even though, these are like, I don't know, $5 if you buy them, so. But anyways, here is the box. Do we need to perhaps zoom in a bit? I think we're gonna do that. Give me just 1 minute. Now we are slightly more zoomed in. So here is the Tuya knife box. Kind of a nice little box with some text here on the side. Tuya knife, Talon, silver, and then some kind of serial number, I reckon. You can get this knife in either silver or gray, or you can get it in a blue finish. So let's unbox this little thing here. So what is included? Well, we have the actual knife, and we also have a small piece of cloth here. It may not be much, but I always, appreciate getting, some kind of pouch and a piece of cloth. It may not be much, but it is a nice little addition. Let's put the box aside and start unwrapping the actual knife. So this is what it looks like. It may not look very, special, out of the box. It may not look bad. It looks nice, but you don't really see why it's an interesting knife. Well, you've already seen it because I always throw in this intro clip before my tabletop review. But anyway, so let's flip this one open, shall we? Nice action. So this is why this knife is a little bit different from what you usually see here on my channel. And you can also see why it got the name Talon. Semi-obvious, right? Let's start by going over the specs right away here. First things first, steel used here is CPM S35VN. Well-proven steel and among my favorites. My favorite being M390, but CPM S35VN is in my top as well. We have an overall length here, a total length of 210 millimeters with a blade length of 93 millimeters and a blade thickness of 3.8 millimeters. We have a close length of 125 millimeters. The weight of this knife should be around 100 grams or slightly less than 100 grams. So, with the numbers out of the way, let's take a look at some closer details here. This could potentially work as a type of a lanyard hole. I rarely use lanyards on my knives, and I think that this looks a bit strange to work as a lanyard hole, but it is probably there, both for looks but also practical use as a lanyard hole, I would reckon. On the flip side here, we have a pocket clip, which is blue, which is actually a nice little, detail here that they went with a blue pocket clip and a blue back spacer. Makes it a bit less dull than if they would have gone, just completely gray or silver, which is what they seem to call it as well. Looking at opening action and closing action for that matter. Really nice swift opening action. Closing action is quite nice and smooth as well. It's not really dropping completely shut, but it's it is out of the box, quite new, or quite, it's brand new. So it could potentially break in and become even easier to open and close. Not that this is in any way a problem, as you can see now it is closing quite nicely. Blade centering. The blade is, I would say it is 100% centered. Not sure if it's visible, but the centering is spot on. This is a frame lock, and the lockup is quite solid. About, I'd say, 20%, somewhere in that vicinity. I feel very secure with that. I'm not going to have any issues with that. Not at all. And in terms of blade play, there is absolutely zero blade play going on. And there's also no lock stick whatsoever. So all in all, that is, nice. No issues out of the box. Just the way we want it to be. The blade profile here is quite interesting. So we got it's gonna be perhaps a challenge for some people to sharpen this one. But it is doable. But you have, of course, a slight recurve here, or some may say that it's more than just a slight recurve, but it is, of course, a recurve, which will make it a bit interesting to sharpen, perhaps. But it is an interesting blade profile. There's no doubt about that, and I find it to be quite, good looking as well. I'm gonna take away some grease here from my fingers. Might be a fingerprint collector, the blade here. So we have some jimping going on here. It is not super aggressive, and it's just, a small part here. It could have perhaps gone with a few more notches here of jimping. Does build some traction. In terms of ergos, to me this is quite a comfortable knife. It's rounded edges, rounded back part as well. No protruding pocket clip. How is the retention here of the pocket clip? Pretty good retention, I'd say. The finger groove here works excellent for my finger. I wear size 10 in gloves, and this fits my hand like a glove, actually. So as I always say, you are always taking a bit of a gamble when you go with a knife, be it a fixed blade or a folder with finger grooves, because you never really know how they will work with your hand. Also, there are sometimes, semi-sharp edges, etc. But on this one, it's very smooth and rounded. Everything about this knife is, nicely rounded and contoured. It can be seen, there are no, sharp edges other than here. Those edges are, or I hope they are sharp. I haven't actually tested the sharpness as of yet. But to me, this is a really comfortable knife. The jimping feels a bit, not out of place, but it feels like, they could have gone further up the spine here with the jimping. would have made a bit more sense to me, or for my size, that is. Oops. Yeah. So maybe we should actually go ahead and test the actual sharpness of this one. Because out of the box it feels great, it's comfortable, action is good, opening and closing. The steel used is one of my preferred steels, so I mean, if it is sharp, then well, that's just one more thing to check off the list here of good stuff. So let's grab some different kinds of paper and I will be right back. Let's proceed to do some cutting here. We're gonna test the sharpness with some regular printing papers. We're also gonna go with some magazine paper. And then we're gonna try some newspaper. So let's start with the printing paper here first, shall we? So right now we are massacring the regular printing paper, which can sometimes be a bit of a challenge for certain models or certain grinds, etc. But as you can see here, we're doing well, quite fine, I would say. It is now completely sliced up, so cutting printing paper was not too much of a challenge. Let's try this magazine paper out instead. I'm trying to get as much of the edge as possible, so we aren't just cutting one place only. It doesn't seem to be much of a challenge to cut the magazine paper. We're cutting it fairly easy. Now we can do some more wavy patterns of sorts, just because. So maybe I was a bit out of not out of focus, but maybe I wasn't totally visible. Let's put the paper down here and we will do it again. So, this knife works quite well for slicing magazine paper, if that is something you enjoy doing on a perhaps a regular basis. Now we have some newspaper paper, which is what I usually find to be the most tricky paper of them all to slice. So let's see how we can do with this one. So we are slicing the magazine paper, or not magazine paper, the newspaper quite nicely. And I'm happy to see that that the factory edge is as nice and sharp as it is, because even though I'm saying that I will be able to sharpen this one, it will require a bit of an extra effort. So happy that I can use it for a while before I have to touch it up in any way, because this factory sharpness is definitely good enough for my standards and needs. Definitely. So this video is more like a first look or first overview of sorts. I'm not going to do a lot of testing. I just wanted to show it off a bit, go over the specs, test the sharpness, and just give it some some room in the spotlight of sorts for a little bit. I'm not sure how known this brand or maker is. I don't think I've checked if there are any videos of this one on YouTube. Perhaps there are a couple of videos, but I wanted to do my own take on it, and to me this is quite an interesting knife. I'm not sure if I'm gonna pick up any other models made by Tuya. I might check them out a bit, but this is definitely the one model that spoke to me the most because it's so different from many of the other folders that I currently own. And by now I own a lot of fixed blades, I own a lot of axes, and I used to not own a ton of folders, but by now I do have quite a lot of folders in my collection as well. And I am trying to find folders that are a bit different. And by different, I don't, I'm not saying that I'm looking for folders that have no practical use, that are just too random or strange or weird in design. But this one, I mean, weird, I wouldn't say it's weird, I wouldn't say it's strange, but I will say that it is different, but in a good way. This is a useful, practical knife that will require a bit of an extra effort when it comes to sharpening. Lucky enough, I mean, the steel is CPM S35EN. It could have been, if this one was, for example, S90V, then I would have felt like, sharpening that one would, take a bit of an extra effort and some extra time. But 35EN I can, touch up quite easily, even with a recurve like this. Let's take a small closer look here. I can see that my camera is starting to get overheated, so perhaps it's time to end the video before that happens. So Tuya knives, very interesting first experience for me.